Hi all. So today we will gonna learn about dependency injection in Spring. Okay, so let us go through it. So first, like as we have already learned about this Spring container, like it's kind of hard the core of your Spring. Okay, and the first functionality which we have already learned is your Spring IOC, which actually create and manages your object. And the second very important functionality is this dependency injection. Okay, which is there in this yellow, which is highlighted in yellow here. So it's like this is actually used to configure and assemble dependency. So now these are kind of very complex term. What is actually configuring and assembling dependency? What is actually this dependency? Okay, how how to understand it? So don't worry, you will get answers of all of your question. Let us go through these slides. Okay, so first question is what actually this dependency means. Okay, so dependency is actually when you are like storing an object inside an another object. Okay, so if I tell you this in simple term, this is kind of storing a reference variable. Okay, for that we can go through this simple core Java example. Okay, so in core Java example, like what I have written here, I have a class bike, and inside this class bike I have written a object or a reference of class engine. Okay, so now this reference, okay, this reference of class engine is called dependency. Okay, why it's called dependency? Because my class bike is dependent on this reference. Because whenever I need to create an object of class bike, I also need to initialize this object. Okay, so that's why this engine, this reference of class engine is a dependency. Okay, got it? So now this reference of engine is dependency. So that's the same I have written in the bottom, like here bike class has dependency engine. So this is normally some instance variable. So if you have written any class and if you written any instance variable inside it, then those are simply the dependency of your class. Okay, now we need to understand what is injection. Okay, so injection is simply initializing those dependency. So if you have to give any initial value to it, then that is simply called injection. So I will go through that same example, same core Java example here. Okay, so I have this class bike, and inside of it I have declared a class reference. Okay, a reference of class engine. Now this is the dependency and I need to initialize this dependency. So for initializing it, what I have done, I have created a constructor of class bike, and it's actually a parameterized constructor. Okay, so it will take an argument, an object of class engine, and then I will assign this reference here. Okay, so what I'm actually doing with the help of this constructor, I am initializing this reference. Okay, I'm initializing this dependency. So that's why it's called injection. So initializing the dependency is called injection. Okay, so that is what I have written here as well, like dependency engine is getting initialized in constructor of class bike. So inside this bike constructor I am initializing it. So that is the simple term. Dependency means a instance variable, a instance maybe a reference of another class, and providing an initial value to it is called injection. Okay, that's all we have learned now. So we will go through a simple example, a real world example through which we will understand it. So now let's assume we are a customer. Okay, we need a bike. So what we actually does, like at the time of maybe Dhanteras, when there is a lot of crowd who are purchasing these bikes and all vehicles. So now what we actually does, we have actually gone to a store, we have given order of a bike, we have given one advance booking. So what actually happens in backend, they will give that order to maybe a factory, assume a bike factory, and what this factory does, this will take all of these parts, okay, and assemble it, and then it will give you that final product. Okay, so it's like getting this thing, okay, assemble and give it to you. So this is same kind of scenario. Okay, this same kind of thing happening with Spring as well. Okay, so this is kind of a high level diagram to which will help you to relate whatever happening in Spring. Okay, so now let us go through the actual diagram, okay, actual example which we will implement in Spring. Now, so what will happen here? Let us understand this scenario as well. So now let's assume we have this assign work app. So I've already created this app in last video, okay, of Spring IOC video. So what this application actually does, it gives work, it kind of assign works to different kind of engineer which we have in our organization. Okay, so now what assign work app is doing, it's requesting for object. So why it's requesting to Spring container? Because that first work of a Spring container which we have learned, that is IOC. So IOC what actually does, it creates and manages the object. Okay, so now we are not using that new keyword here for creating any object. We are requesting this object to this Spring container, and this will give us the object. Okay, and how this will give us those object, it's all depend on this configuration file. So in the last video we have learned how we can give configuration so that it will give us different, it will give us object of different engineers. Okay, so according to this configuration, like we can configure this file so that it will give object of these different engineers. Now what this engineer also have, so earlier we have only simply this engineer class. Now we have some dependencies as well. Okay, dependencies means some instance variable inside this engineer class. So now what we can do, we can write whole things in configuration file, like which engineer object we want, and also how to initialize their dependencies, means how to initialize instance variable inside this engineer class. Okay, so we can mention all these things inside this configuration, and then this configuration will be taken as an input for this Spring container, and this Spring container will provide us that whole engineer class and their initialized dependencies as well. Okay, so now we have more access. Okay, now we have like more control here. We are getting that engineer object as well, and we can also initialize their dependencies with the help of this configuration file. So now it's kind of very powerful thing we have. So now what this Spring container does, according to this configuration, it will give you that object and also inject the dependencies of this engineer class, and then it will give you that whole object, it will return you that whole object. Okay, so that was kind of a high level architecture of Spring, like how it actually works. Okay, now a kind of quick summary. So what we have learned about dependency injection, so it's actually initializing the dependency is called dependency injection. Okay, so dependencies are simply what we can say, the instance variable inside a class, and injection means initializing those dependencies, means providing an initial value to those dependency. Now, so this dependency injection can be achieved by various ways, and there are most common ways. Okay, there are like two most common ways which is used in Spring. So first one is constructor injection, and second one is setter injection. So constructor injection, as this name suggests, as this name kind of gives you a summary, like through constructor only we will inject it. Okay, we will initialize those reference variable, those instance variable. So that's why it's called constructor injection. And setter injection means with the help of setter we will inject those dependencies, we will initialize those dependencies. So these are most commonly used dependency injection types. So we will gonna learn about this in next video. That's all for today. Thank you for watching the video. Have a great day ahead.